Okay, why don't we get right to it? Um, this morning, we're submitting the 2016 operating budget to the City Council. This operating budget is at approximately $289 million, of which $209 million will come from the property tax. So unfortunately, once again, Madison will be one of the leading cities in the United States in terms of deriving its revenue from the property tax. What this means is on the average home, which is usually how we measure the impact, the average home will see a 2.9% increase on the city portion of the levy, which will amount to $66. Now, my goal was to have an increase no greater than 2.3%. But the cost of continuing operations and the demands for basic services is such that we're going to have to accept 2.9% unless we're prepared to make some significant cuts in what I consider to be essential programming. I believe that this is a reasonable goal, particularly since inflation has been at a modest 1.7%. But again, because of commitments that were not annualized in the past, and because of the impact of borrowing, we will see this consequence in regards to the levy. Some of the programs that we'll be funding include the full operation of the Teresa Terrace Neighborhood Center and the Meadowood Neighborhood Center, a commitment here to our Housing First Street team to help support access to housing and support services for homeless individuals, the expansion of one of our most successful programs, the Wanda Fulmer Summer Youth Internship, which will have significant positive impacts on not just the kids and their families, but our community in future years. It's the kind of investment we have to make. We'll be working on a solar installation training program, which will be initiated through the engineering division. There's enhanced safety and security in key neighborhoods through the funding of 12 new police commission staff, which were created in the 2015 budget with one-time revenues. Fourth, we'll be responding to the opportunities and demands raised by rapidly expanding technological capabilities through our information technology agency, having to work on issues ranging from financial analysis to security, cybersecurity. And one thing that everyone really depends on is full funding for basic services involving refuse, recycling, snow and ice control, as well as staff to oversee and monitor these activities. This budget is going to be one of the first in years that does not take us close to the levy limits. There was a time when the mayor and the city council had to make responsible decisions, not based on the containments of levy limits, but based on doing analysis of basically what the city could afford and what the impact was on the property tax as it affected low-income families and homeowners who were pensioners on fixed income and retirees. In the past, when the mayor has submitted the budget to the city council, there's been a range of perhaps $100,000 to $250,000 available for the city council to take it to the maximum on the levy. The final adjustments have not yet been made, but there is between $1.5 and $2 million available under the levy limit. The reasons why I have not taken it to the max are twofold. The first is, as I've explained, there has to be acknowledgement and recognition of our cost as it impacts property owners, and recognition of their capacity after the continual increases we've seen in the property tax in recent years. The second is that we have obligations coming due over the next several years, and we have to have the capacity to fully fund them by 2018 and perhaps even 2017. If the city were to take us to the maximum in terms of the levy, what we knew would happen starting in 2011 will occur by 2018, and we will find ourselves facing layoffs and reductions in city services. I know it'll be very tempting to fund so many different ideas and projects, all of which I am sure are solid. But we are going to have to balance that desire with the impact on the future, which unfortunately in prior years and decades the City Council has not been inclined to do. This budget recognizes contracts requiring 3% increase for police and fire commission staff, 2% for our Madison Metro transit employees, along with a 2.25% pay increase for all their other employees, with a cost of $4.9 million. The general fund debt service is anticipated to increase by $3 million, or approximately 8% based on the $82 million in debt issued in 2015. And as you know, depending on what the capital budget looks like after adoption this year for 2016, we could have some additional problems. There are budget pressures created by shortfalls of nearly $5 million in the insurance, workers' compensation, and fleet services funds. And as I indicated before, increases of cost to continue by the adoption of budget items in past years which use one-time revenues will cost us $3.4 million. And we cannot continue that practice if we are going to continue with a sound budget for 2017 and 18. We've met some of the budget pressures with some new and different adoptions, such as the annualization of the urban forestry special charge, taking us to $1.5 million. That charge will show up as it has been in recent months on the water bill. We will modestly raise the ambulance conveyance fee from $900 to $1,000. Most of that cost is met through insurance reimbursements, and we have a significant program that recognizes hardships with a waiver for folks who have to pay cash out of pocket. That will be waived. There's a modest increase in towing fees from $50 to $65, the first such increase since 1997. And to stay in compliance with the new state law affecting the room tax, we'll be using the first $1.325 million an additional room tax, which is being made available to fund Overture. Overture will be funded in an amount that is unchanged, namely $1.75 million. Those are some of the highlights, but I'd be remiss to say this budget would not be possible without the changes in health insurance. Those costs are down almost $1 million compared to this year as we move to a deductible plan design, which is really consistent with what's happening with most other public employees in the Madison region. Questions?
What are those obligations coming due you talked about, Mayor?
Pardon?
Those obligations coming due, what are they?
Well, we've got some grants, COPS grants. We've got some SAFER grants where we're getting full funding of positions, and once those grants expire, we are under a contractual obligation to fund them at 100%.
Quick question about Judge Doyle Square. There's
Yes.
been a lot of talk about that. Anytime we talk about it, we talk about Exact Sciences. Exact Sciences stock is down 46% this morning. How concerning is that when we're talking about this project?
I don't think it's relevant. It's a result of a change in classification, and it's not a final decision. We don't see that it changes Exact Sciences hiring, which is what's critical to this decision.
Were you able to avoid layoffs in this then?
Layoffs are avoided. There are 31 new positions, many of them in public safety. But the trajectory we're on, especially if we eat up that gap between what I've submitted and the levy limit, is sort of like walking down a long corridor that's narrowing the further we get, and within 2 years we'll be at the end and we'll be trapped.
23 new positions, did you just say?
31.
I'm sorry, 31, and is that the continuation of the 12 police officers?
Yes.
Okay, so those aren't new, those are continued.
Fully funded in this budget.
Mayor, as far as resources for folks to find housing and things go, where do you see that kind of lying in light of what's happened with the CCB and where the homeless are now? Kind of any thoughts as you enter this
Well, in the
budget?
capital budget, we're continuing our 5-year, $25 million program of tax credits and TIF dollars to be used to build new housing. Our goal is somewhere between 800 and 1,000 units. We've already got 50 of those units under construction at Rethke. As I've mentioned earlier, we've got the new program of the Housing First Street team to go out into the field and work with homeless individuals. And there's the usual millions of dollars of support services for folks in poverty and people who are homeless.
No increase for Madison Metro buses, right?
In terms of the fare?
Yeah.
No fare increase. Is there a modest fare increase, Dave, in some of the multi-ride packages? I was just thinking
In
of.
2016, but you sort of anticipate that those multi-ride fares will be reviewed for the 2017 budget.
So what are you anticipating on Metro?
In 2016, there are no fare increases, but if we're going to maintain the services, particularly the expanded services into low-income areas, for some of the multi-ride packages, we're going to have to review it for 2017.
And will the 1.5 million with the urban forestry fee keep it at kind of the same charge that it currently is on the bill?
On an annualized basis, yes. Yes.
This is interesting what you're talking about. The council in the past hasn't been of a mind to leave a cushion, and it is very tempting for them. What's your message to the council, I guess, for this? You're not
Well, let me tell you the decision that I went through. And it was especially critical given what the council's done to the capital budget. If we're going to spend the additional money, what is our priorities? For example, over the next several years, the adjustments made to the capital budget take spending up on borrowing $30 million. If I were to do that, I certainly would not put it into the areas the council did, but I would focus on community centers, and I would focus on the public market, which has enormous economic ramifications, particularly for low-income households and fledgling entrepreneurs. So the question was this: does the council spend this $1.5 to $2 million? Or should I have put in recommendations to, in effect, capture that entire amount? The advantage of my doing it is that it creates different priorities I'm more compatible with in regards to how we spend the money. But I ask myself, what do I believe is the correct thing to do? What is the correct thing to do in regards to providing an operating budget that's in the best interest of the city? And I concluded that not spending that $1.5 to $2 million was the right thing to do. Now, whether or not the council is going to work with me on that, I don't know.
Do you have any idea how much those obligations are gonna kind of come to cost-wise in 2017, 2018?
By 2018, it'll certainly chew up this entire $2 million. The annualization of full-time positions under grants, obligations under labor agreements,
So most of it's
requirements in regards to federal, state obligations, what's called unfunded mandates. It'll be here by 2018. It may be here by 2017.
In a few agencies, specifically engineering, the request and the executive budget are significantly lower. Is that through transfers of people to other departments, or what is that? Or
There is some reorganization in engineering and change of staff positions, which was able to be accomplished at very little cost. We joke around here, but it's true. So many of the operating costs in engineering can be covered by capital budget items in terms of public projects. And all the other agencies are a little jealous that they don't have any construction projects to which they could attribute costs. But engineering is the agency around here that's in charge of all the construction, and we take many of the operating costs out of that from the borrowing. It's the one area where you can legitimately use borrowed money to pay staff salaries.
So some of that would be coming from capital costs, essentially?
Yes. Anything else? Thank you very much.